we look at people who are what we would call, if you use in common parlance, good spellers, and we look at bad spellers, the good spellers do the same thing. All good spellers do the same thing. And of course, we're not really talking about this in terms of some innate quality of being able to spell or not being able to spell.
Bestowed upon you when you're born.
That's right.
You're a good speller.
It's actually quite random how you come to be a good speller or a poor speller. Because when we're learning to spell, because teachers don't understand how strategies work, or many of them don't, although we are changing that as fast as possible, they give instructions which are rather vague. They're fairly nominalised. So they'll say, here are your spellings, write them down and learn them. And when I was a girl, maybe it's changed now, we used to be given really small books for our spelling and a pencil, which was very faint. So you write very small letters very faintly. And then you're expected to go and learn them. And as a child, the creative children, and they're bright, they'll find all sorts of different ways of doing this. Some of them will hit upon a really efficient strategy. Others won't. So it's nothing to do with intelligence, it's just whether you're lucky enough to find the right way to do it.
Which I guess does not only go for spelling strategies, but for strategies in general. Do you stumble upon something that really works for you?
That's right. Exactly. Whatever it is, it's whether or not because until everybody understands about strategies and said, if you want to go about it, this is how Einstein did it, or this is how this successful business person does it. We're just going to randomly wander around trying to find ways of doing it. Really. So with spelling, let's look at how good spellers do it. What good spellers do is they hear the word or they see the word written down. Let's just imagine for a moment they hear the word. So they hear the word, and we call that auditory external in NLP speak. So the first step is they hear something. So there's a big A goes here. And then they look up, because people keep their pictures up here, at their internal database for the memory of that word. And good spellers will have a big, still image of that word. So they look at the word, they hear the word there, the A, then they make a big visual picture of it there, and they get a strong sense that that's correct down their midline. And it's as simple as that. Now, a poor speller will do all sorts of other stuff.
I used to do a lot of that other stuff, as you know.
So, for example, they may hear the word. So they might, for example, they hear the word, that's how the trigger anyway, and then they might feel bad. They might go, oh no, I've got to spell. And they say something really negative like that to themselves, like, oh, I'm never going to be able to do this, feel bad. And then they look in their database and it's not there. So they think, well, I'll create it out of the letters that I know.
That was what we were talking about yesterday. That's what I used to do. Like, I might spell it like that. I might go like that. There's all these options,
And then they sort of randomly select some letters together that look like it could be that, and then they try and check it auditorily, and phonics doesn't work for spelling, and so then they get a sort of yucky feeling about it, and they still haven't really managed to spell the word. So we'll do all sorts of variations.
But it's quite an important thing that you kind of squeezed in there, which is phonics doesn't work. Whereas phonics is the sounding out of the words, so reading it to yourself. So phonics doesn't work in English, and it doesn't work very well in Dutch. It works better in Spanish. It doesn't work at all in Japanese. And phonics can be useful in teaching reading, but it's useless for spelling. Right.
Because what spelling requires is that you're consistent and efficient. Because all spelling is a general acceptance of a sequence of letters.
Right.
That's what we've all said. Excellency spelt like this. We've decided at some point in time.
Yeah.
Most of them have roots in either Greek or Latin. Some of them from French, but we've just decided at this point in time that's how you spell that word.
Yeah.
So the only thing that's important is to be able to consistently recall that's the received way of doing it.
Yeah.
And I worked with a lady once who said to me, she was really good fun. She said, "Oh well, I can spell, but just not like anyone else." And she had her own received way, if you like. So she didn't conform to the way that everybody else spelt things. And she didn't really think it mattered. She preferred her way of doing it, because I said to her, "Well, what stops you from doing it in the conforming way?" She said, "Well, I'm a creative person. I just, and she sort of believed that if she conformed in this way, it would challenge her creativity.
Right.
And my job was a bit different in that case, because I had to convince her that by conforming just that little bit, it would allow more people to experience her creativity in the world.
Yeah.
So it's all about consistency.
Yeah.
So big, steady, still pictures.
Yeah.
And there are two types of, obviously if you're installing a spelling strategy from scratch, you might pay more attention to the shape of each letter and maybe put it in a different colour to make it stand out more. Yeah. If you're trying to improve
this also gets into like if you, for instance, would like to start to use the spelling strategy, how you go about that. So that would be, for instance, as you're describing now.
Yeah, so if you're working with an entirely new word, you might take each letter and make it a different colour, so that if you can't quite remember what letter it is, you might remember the colour, and the colour may lead you to the shape of the letter. So that's one way to do it. But often for adults, it's not that they're bad spellers, it's that they're inconsistent in certain words. They just haven't paid enough attention to particular words. So often the beginning or the middle or the end, when they look at their picture of the word, it's a bit blurry, like that one, Jasper.
Yeah.
So you find the blurry bit, the bit that's not quite clear, or the bit that moves around, and you make that stand out in some way with another colour, for example. Or you find another word that has the same pattern in that you do know how to spell confidently, and then that helps your mind to put that in the picture and make that bit stand out in the picture.
So would your advice in that sense be to, for instance, if you would want to start to use this, that you would, for instance, just sit down and think of a few words that you might have had difficulty with and write them down in big bold letters with the colours?
I quite often suggest to people when they start that they use wallpaper or lining paper, not just notepads. Big pieces of paper. Big pieces of paper. Write the word really big, because the bigger you write it there, the more likely you are to make it big in your mind.
So let's just very quickly go through the steps so that you may be able to do that at home or wherever you are. So you get a big piece of paper.
Big piece of paper.
Think of a difficult word that you might have had struggled with before. Write it down, and especially the part that had the most difficulty.
Yeah, so you find the bit that you're least likely to remember, the bit that's hard for you to get right.
Right.
And you write that in a way that stands out in another colour. I like you to use your favourite colour for that bit, because then it makes you feel nice at the same time.
And then what? So you have it written down. So you're sitting in front of the word, and then?
And it's really handy if you put it high up.
Right. So maybe on the wall.
Yeah, because we remember our pictures up here, not down here. This is where our feelings are. So we want to put the picture where we're going to remember it best, which is up there. So if you're looking up at the picture, then you're also looking up in your mind. So you look at the word, close your eyes, see the word in your mind, open your eyes, check that the word's the same, do that a couple of times, and then say which letter comes first, second, third, fourth, all the way
so
through.
Without
or
looking
write
at the
it
word,
down.
then you can.
Then you test yourself on it. And the way to know that you've got a big, still picture is that if you can do it easily forwards, you can also state what each letter is in reverse order.
Right.
Because when it's a picture, it's all connected together. So you can easily go to the last letter, or the third letter, or the fifth letter, and you still know which one it is. And
then maybe someone would go like, oh, so then I have to go through the entire dictionary to make all the pictures in my mind of all the words?
No, you don't, because once you, this is the joy of strategies. There's a difference between having a strategy and learning one thing. When you learn the strategy, what happens once you do it consciously and carefully a few times, you've programmed your mind to do that. So you then start to be able to do it automatically. So you see a new word, you make a picture of the word, you check which bit might be a little bit challenging to remember, make that bit stand out, and you've got it.
Yeah. Cool. So it becomes to be an unconscious competence
at that
point.
Yeah. Cool. Very quickly, yes.
So if you want to learn more about strategies, this is a great book to do it in. But there's much more in there than only strategies, obviously.
There is.
It's a very comprehensive NLP book, probably.
Yes, it is actually. It's called Teaching Excellence, and it was originally designed for teachers.
Yeah.
But increasingly, what we found is that master practitioners, trainers, parents, coaches are all buying it and finding it really useful.
Yeah. So definitely, if you want to find out more about that, do read this book because it's brilliant. Yeah.
Thank you for the plug.
Well, there you go.